observation, measurement, prediction. How do these basic process skills provide a foundation for learning? Hello, Saipals! I am Ma'am Ledesa Padua, your science teacher for today. In this episode of Agham Alam Hub, we are going to identify and differentiate the 6 basic process skills. We will also appreciate the significance of basic process skills in learning. In the next few minutes, we will explore science for another moment. Science brings its own set of abilities, focusing on formulating hypotheses, influencing the physical environment, and deducing conclusions from the evidence. The science process happens naturally and spontaneously. It can utilize the science process to figure out how to answer questions about how the world works by logically breaking down the processes in thinking. The science process is beneficial not only in science, but in every circumstance that requires critical thinking. The science process skills form the foundation for scientific methods. These basic process skills are combined when scientists plan and conduct experiments, or when we all conduct fair test experiments in our daily lives. Each of the basic process skills is essential on its own as well as when they are combined. There are 6 basic process skills: observation, communication, classification, measurement, inference, and prediction. Observation is the fundamental science process skill. It is made by using the 5 senses. The ability to make good observations is also essential to the development of the other basic process skills: communicating, classifying, measuring, inferring, and predicting. The simplest observations made using only the senses are qualitative observations. Observations that involve a number or quantity are quantitative observations. Quantitative observations give more precise information than our senses alone. For examples, the learner will create observations about Makahiya plant using the 5 senses. The learner will get the height of the mungo sprout, and the learner will observe the color of the flowers of gomamela and the leaves of mayana. The next basic process skill is communication. It is important to be able to share experiences. Students can communicate observations verbally, in writing, or by drawing pictures. Other methods of communication that are often used include graphs, charts, maps, diagrams, and visual demonstrations. Students have to communicate and share their observations. It must be clear and effective to understand the information. For examples, the learner will create a line graph showing the relationship between speed and the mass of a marble. The learner will discuss possible errors in the experiment with other classmates. The learner will make a graph of the relationship between the volume and the mass of water. Another basic process skill is classification. It is grouping or ordering objects or events into categories based on properties or criteria. Grouping objects or events is a way of imposing order based on similarities, differences, and interrelationships. This is an important step towards a better understanding of the different objects and events. There are 2 methods of classification. binary classification, and multi-stage classification. In a binary classification system, a set of objects is simply divided into two subsets. This is usually done based on whether each object has or does not have a particular property. For example, animals can be classified into two groups, those with backbones and those without backbones. Binary classification can also be carried out using more than one property at once. Objects in one group must have all of the required properties. Otherwise, they will belong to the other group. A multi-stage classification is constructed by performing consecutive binary classifications on a set of objects and then on each of the following subsets. The result is a classification system consisting of layers or stages. A multi-stage classification is complete when each of the objects in the original set has been separated into a category by itself. The familiar classifications of the animal and plant kingdoms are examples of multi-stage classifications. Measurement is important in collecting, comparing, and interpreting data. It helps to classify and communicate with others. The metric system should be used to help understand the scientific domain. When measuring some properties, there is a comparison of the property to a defined referent called a unit. A measurement statement contains two parts: a number to tell us how much or how many, and a name for the unit to tell us how much of what. Examples: the learner will measure the volume and mass of water to determine its density. The learner will find the speed of a toy truck. The learner will measure the distance traveled by a marble. Inference is an explanation based on observation. It is a link between what is observed and what is already known. But unlike observations, which are direct evidence gathered about an object, inferences are explanations or interpretations that follow from the observations. For example, it is an observation to say an insect released a dark, sticky liquid from its mouth. And it is an inference to state the insect released a dark, sticky liquid from its mouth because it is upset and trying to defend itself. The last basic process skill is prediction. Making predictions is making educated guesses about the outcomes of future events. It is forecasting future observations. Prediction is based on good observation and inferences made about observed events. Like inferences, predictions are based on what is being observed and also past experiences that the mental models build up from those experiences. So, predictions are not just guesses. Predictions based on inferences or hypotheses about events give a way to test those inferences or hypotheses. This is the basis of the scientific process used by a scientist who is asking and answering questions by integrating the 6 basic process skills. For examples, the learner will predict the effect of increasing the salt on the buoyancy of an egg. The learner will tell what will happen to the height of a plant in 2 weeks based on a graph of its growth during the previous 4 weeks. Properly incorporating basic process skills into classroom teaching and outdoor investigations will enrich students' learning experiences. Students will be taught skills and information. Students will be actively involved in the subjects they are studying, resulting in a better perception of the content. Finally, active engagement with the areas will lead students to become more interested and have more positive attitudes. In this episode of Agham Alam Hub, you have identified and differentiated the basic process skills. There are 6 basic process skills: observation, communication, classification, measurement, inference, and prediction. Successfully integrating the basic process skills with classroom lessons and field investigations will make the learning experiences richer and more meaningful for students. Students will be learning the skills of the subjects as well as the content. The students will be actively engaged in topics they are learning and thus reach a deeper understanding of the content. That's all for today, Cypals. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. See you again next week for another moment. Only here in Agham Alam Hub, Palajan's SciTech Portal. Bye!